This is Tea with Terry, and I'm Terry. We're going to talk about thoughts, emotions, and actions. So today we're going to explore this thought around stress. So if you think about it, we probably all have a definition of stress in our mind. And we may even classify stress as good or bad or overwhelming. And so, what we're going to talk about today, and the new thought is to explore the concept of the stress versus the stressor. So, we often think that this circumstance is creating stress, but what's happening is there is a circumstance, and that circumstance, that situation, is the stressor. And this is a really powerful concept. It can be, because it can really help us notice where we can take control and where we don't have control around those stressors in our life. So the important part about the stress versus stressors is that if we can affect the stressor, that can be a great way to relieve stress. But sometimes those stressors are not in our control. And so when we recognize that that's the stressor, we can then deal with the stress that is created. And that's something we can always impact. That's something where we always have a little bit or a lot of control. So I'll give you an example. So let's say you have a work schedule and it is incredibly difficult. It's not working for your life. And that is a stressor. Every time you have to get to your shift too early or work an overnight shift, for example, it creates this compounding effect as in stress. So that stressor, I was just talking with someone about this, and she said, I switched up my work schedule. And that stressor then went away. So by recognizing this is the stressor, the circumstances that's creating an impact of stress, and I have some control over that, she was able to switch it up, and now she has a different work schedule and she feels much less stress on the daily. Now, imagine you have a situation where you have an elderly parent with dementia and they are newly in a care center, and maybe you're getting a lot of calls around their care and treatment, and it's a stressor. This circumstance has happened. And this is one of those types of stressors where we don't have a lot of control over it. We don't know what's going to happen with our elderly parent. The fact that their health is in decline is really out of our control in many ways. And so that's a stressor. And when we recognize the stressor, parent in the care center, we can then say, what is the impact? And if that impact is creating stress, that is something we can do something about. And so notice the stressor, the circumstance, the situation, and then notice if it's creating stress. And then if it's something you can change, work on that stressor so that that will create less stress for you overall. If it's something out of your control, we can work on the stress. We can learn ways to complete the stress cycle. We can learn ways to regulate our nervous system. We can practice asking for help and setting boundaries. And this opens up a whole new way to explore stress. So instead of feeling overwhelmed and throwing up our hands, this new thought about stressor and stress might be a game changer for you. All right, well, that's Tea for Terry for today. I'll see you next week.